Instruction, golf news, equipment, travel, interviews, course profiles, and more. Your weekly fix of all things golf is about to begin. It's the Flagstick Podcast with your hosts, Jeff Potter and Scott McLeod. Well, happy new year. Welcome to 2023 and welcome to the first podcast, the first Flagstick Podcast of 2023, presented this week by a new sponsor, Golf PEI. Golf Prince Edward Island is a premier golf destination boasting the most number of golf courses per capita in the country, with over 400 fairways, closer than you can possibly imagine, top-tiered accommodations, exquisite culinary experiences. It's the easiest golf vacation you will ever book, so book those vacations and tee times at golfpei.ca. We're very familiar. Well, let me say welcome. I'm not hosting by myself, as always. With me is my buddy Scott McLeod, co-host.
How you doing, Jeffrey?
Welcome in, Scott McLeod.
Well, thank you.
Welcome to 2023. I know we're 11 or 12 days into 2023 now, but this is the first podcast, and we don't talk that much, but we do talk enough.
And I think you were going to get to it, but obviously, we're excited and happy to have Golf PEI on board.
Well, we've known this was coming, because a lot of these marketing things that happen, within the company, they don't just happen overnight. Yesterday. We've been working on this one with Golf PEI, trying to solidify a plan for them, and we've had this plan in place, knowing that they were going to be coming on board as a title sponsor of the podcast, as well as a lot of other things. And but they're going to be a title sponsor of the podcast for a bunch of weeks here. Yeah, I'm going to tell you how many weeks, but with that comes we're obviously going to be talking a little bit about Golf PEI and you having lots of family,
a little bit of connection with the island,
and a connection to PEI, and us having been there. I won't say recently, but probably the most recent trip that we've taken together, golf related, in quite some time. Was PEI, and
and I think the big thing here, it's fun. I mean, Sam McPhail, the new executive director down there, is great. Obviously, had a chance to meet up with him there in August when I was home, as we'll call it, home. And I say home for people that maybe are not aware, and there's no reason for them to be, but both sides of my family have been there for 200 years. So I've got a lot of ties there. It's a special spot for me, and definitely, people need to, if they want to book for this summer, they need to start booking now, and that's sort of the emphasis of everything. But I was excited when we went, because anytime that I bring somebody there, or has a chance to be there and I'm there with them, there's a sense of pride for me to show off what's in Prince Edward Island. And I mean, I think the ad read in basically lays it right out there, especially things like culinary experiences. As far as people just come back from there and they're like, man, this place is so laid back, food was great, people were fantastic, and I think that was your impression as well, I'm sure.
Oh, absolutely. Well, it's kind of funny because usually when we take golf excursions, road trips, fam trips, whatever the case may be, we're usually being, I won't say chaperoned, but sometimes we're shuttled around or met by people within those tourism organizations to kind of give us the lay of the land and let us know, okay, well, this is this and this is this. In this case, while we did have some support from people within the Golf PEI group, you were more or less the chaperone or the tour guide for me, and there was really not necessary to have a hand-holding experience, if you will, with that one. It was, but anyway, we got lots of weeks to throw little tidbits in about PEI and golf and PEI, but there will be lots to talk about. And we'll have Sam on at some point or another within the next bunch of weeks to kind of talk a little bit about golf and PEI
we'll have some content as well on flagstick.com for people to have a look at. I've already started shaping a few things there for people to look at as they look at maybe planning their vacation down to PEI.
Content on flagstick.com.
Yeah, hard to believe.
Funny that, eh?
Yeah,
funny that. It's great to, we had a bunch of weeks off with the podcast. Obviously, we needed a little rest. The holidays are hustle and bustle. But we're excited to kind of be back and starting to have these conversations. We're going to try different things with the podcast in 2023. Maybe a little less structured than we were last year. Still some obviously structure to it. There's certain things that we're always going to want to talk about every week. And there's certain things that we're just going to kind of fly off the cuff, and it'll be whatever we decide. It'd be more of a discussion type podcast, I guess, if you will. And we'll have some topics that are current and some things that are top of mind for us that we want to talk about. We're just going to banter about them and have some guests on. And
we appreciate feedback as well. If people, if people are following us on social or dropping in reviews anywhere, just mention what you want to hear about, and we'll do that feedback as well, or look for that feedback on our socials and say, hey, you know what do you want? What do you want to talk about? What do you want to hear about? There's some things that we can blend in there that could be fun. And obviously right now, it's the start of the year. People are excited. They're looking forward to, 2023. It's kind of that turn of the calendar. Golf season is getting closer, especially for us in this part of the country where we're not playing golf right now. But for a lot of people, they're getting ramped up. PJ Tour's back on TV. That's, and then, we'll get to it as well, starting to talk about equipment and everything that's happening on that front.
Exactly. That's the thing. Like, if you go through the holiday season and there's the whole holy, holly jolly, 'tis the season to be merry. Well, if December is 'tis the season to be merry and talking Christmas and holiday spirit, then January is 'tis the season to talk about golf equipment, because the end of this month is the PGA show, the PGA merchandise show. Now, for a number of years, it was kind of virtual, and then it was back, and there's still, what is it going to look like going forward? Obviously we're not there this year. I haven't been in a while. You haven't been in a while now too.
And I've only been to 27 of them, so
so it's not like you don't not exactly sure what to expect if you did go. But the point is, it's kind of that time when, although it's not like it used to be years and years ago where the new stuff was held back and released at the PGA show, and we've talked about this on the podcast before. But it is kind of that time of year where a lot of the new gear, new equipment, unique products are sort of released to the marketplace and discussed. There's a lot of embargoes on stuff right now because, we obviously know about stuff that we can't talk about. And a lot of that new stuff is going to start to be announced over the next couple of weeks leading into the PGA merchandise.
A lot of it already.
Yeah.
I mean, not even just leading the show. And that's a lot tied into the PGA Tour and use on the PGA Tour with the Century Tournament of Champions last week. And then the Sony Open this week was the first full field event.
Right.
That's really precipitated manufacturers getting out their big stuff as far as the drivers, which is what everybody kind of looks at. And we've been absolutely hammered this year. And in fact, in speaking with some of the other colleagues and, people that focus on equipment, this has probably been the most intense embargo season that we've ever seen. It's crazy. I mean, while I was on vacation, I was still doing online PK sessions with several manufacturers, recording interviews, just spending time running through product sell sheets. There is just a lot going on, and the timing of that just can't be ignored, unfortunately. And that means as well that if we get stuff in, like yesterday, for an example, I got an email that added 8 more embargo dates over the next 2 weeks as far as the different types of products. I got more stuff this morning. While we're recording this show, there is a post going up of a product that was released this morning under embargo. And it just does not stop. And while manufacturers are they're considerate as far as realizing and understanding that we can't get to everything, I can't even imagine what the consumer is thinking right now. Either they're giddy, and I said it last night, either they're giddy or their heads are spinning at this point.
I mean, I think I fall in the category of my head is spinning because at the same time, what does it all mean? Like, how do you kind of decipher through all of this new gear that's coming out, and how much of it is marketing hype? And it's
Yeah.
no disrespect to the industry, no disrespect to the
Not at
managers,
all.
and I know our manufacturers, and I know we say that no disrespect because then we're about to disrespect, but I'm not.
It's not
But
disrespecting.
the thing is, the consumer is the one that has to navigate through
Right.
what was released last year, what was
Hmm.
released the year before, what's coming this year, how
Yeah.
much of a difference is there in the product that's being released this year, how much of a difference is it going to make in their game if they were to abandon the club that they just
Right.
bought last year in favor of
Yeah.
the new model that's out. And it's not like the new models that are coming out don't have significant R&D differences to
Hmm.
them
For sure.
that are going to cause some value of improvement to their games.
Yeah.
It's just how much of that
Right.
improvement is worth abandoning a $400 or $500 club that you bought in 2022 in favor of the new 2023 model, the new, the
Yeah.
shiny new toy.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it's a trade-off, right? I mean, as you
exactly.
said, do you invest $800 now? And what is the difference between what I have? I mean, manufacturers are knowing and understanding that product cycles are changing.
Mm-hmm.
Consumers are obviously hanging on to things at different times, and we'll get to something that we did a survey this week talking a little bit
Yeah.
about that. Um, but yeah, I think people have to put it in context. And in talking to Ryan Barath, who writes for golf.com, who's a good friend, a Canadian, we talk about equipment all the time and the generations and the cycles of them and so forth. People have to understand it's just like a car. I mean, new
Mm-hmm.
cars come out every year, but you don't buy the new car every year. Maybe you do,
Yeah.
right? But again, it's that trade-off. Yes, okay, they've gone from a 6-inch screen to a 10-inch screen
Yeah.
inside, and they've added this element and they've changed this or whatever. It's up to the consumer to decide what the trade-off is and what the value is of that trade-off, of whether it's worth it to upgrade. It's not for us or the manufacturer to kind of determine that. Manufacturer's job is to keep making equipment. They're beholden maybe to shareholders, but their engineers are going to keep pushing and pushing forward. And we'll have one of those on later on in the show to talk
Mm-hmm.
about the advances in equipment. So don't get upset that companies keep making new products. Get upset with yourself that either you're not going through a proper fitting process, or that you're just assuming that you're going to you need it. You don't necessarily need it. Again, back to the car analogy, you're not buying the new car every single year, and these are investments, and I guarantee you these clubs are getting better. Yes, it's not revolutionary every single year. I will tell you, within the companies, there's definitely some unicorn products every year, and
Mm-hmm.
we're talking a little bit about that today with Tomo Bystedt later on. That there's a few products that get in there and become that are really significant. And then on the other side of it, one last thing point before, and then I'd love to hear your comments on this as well, is that there's a lot of people, because they're not able to test the products yet, they're looking online and judging things based on the appearances, and they're like, oh, that's ugly, that's terrible, that's what I mean. You can't tell by looking at the brand new 2023 Tesla, whether you can tell whether you like it aesthetically
Mm-hmm.
or not, but whether it performs better or not, you can't really make that judgment. And I've actually got a column up today on flagstick.com in defense of a particular iron that people have, that it's been out on the marketplace and people are chewing up on social media and talking about, oh, this thing's ugly, blah, 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 this, that, or whatever, when they haven't even tested it. And big surprise, the number one player in the world actually requested a model within it to test out himself. So that just shows you that sort of dichotomy that's in there. So people want to check that out. So, but what's your overall thoughts on that process?
Well,
And
it's like, to me, everybody's rotation, everybody's product cycle within their own golf bag is different.
Right. Yeah.
We're not all on the same schedule. We're not all checking the same timeline.
Right.
So, for me, I just changed my equipment last year.
Right. But
I
it's been a while.
yeah, it has been a while, and I have access to the newer
Everything.
stuff on a
Yeah.
probably on a more regular basis than most,
Sure.
but I didn't change
Yeah.
until just recently.
Yeah.
The difference between what I'm playing now and what I was playing is not a massive difference because I'm not playing a driver that is, fully adjustable everywhere.
Right.
I'm not playing so, but I did go from something that was um more fixed and less adjustable to something that does have some adjustability and some difference to
Yeah.
what I was playing. The driver I
Yeah.
was
But it's
playing
but
was
it's
about
but it's but
8 or
it's
9 years old. So
but it's a fractional advancement, right? I
exactly.
mean, it's still a car that gets you from A to B. It's
Uh-huh.
still a car that gets you from A to B. I mean, a great example is I pulled a little trick on Instagram last night and posted a shot screen capture of an iron shot that went, nice little draw, went to whatever 165, 170 yards, whatever it was, with an 8 iron, and said, "Hey, I'm testing an 8 iron." And what do you think I'm testing? And of course, the responses back from people were all the different irons that have come out this week. Well, this
Right.
morning I revealed that it was a 2002 Callaway X16 Pro Series, right? So, the golfer can still get it done. There may be differences in feel, launch conditions, all sorts of different things with maybe something that's newer, something gets fit. When it comes down to it, if people ask me what I play, the clubs that fit me.
Exactly.
It's not about, for me, it's not about just saying a brand or whatever. It's like, go get fitted. That's the biggest thing. So
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Exactly. I mean, and that's how I look at it is your car analogy is a perfect analogy, even though dollars and cents wise, we're
Right.
talking about a lot more
Right.
difference in
But
money, but the cycle
but
is different.
yeah, and
I
drivers and irons, the price is not cheap anymore.
no,
It's not going in and spending $150. There's a lot of drivers now that are in the $800 range.
yes,
Um,
and
you know,
more.
and more. So, once you get custom shafts and stuff in there, so it's a significant investment. So that's where it's starting to creep closer to the
Yeah,
car analogy more than anything.
exactly. Okay. Um, let's kind of move ahead because let's keep the conversation
Well,
going, Scott.
well,
But let's just take just let people know. You mentioned earlier that we are going to have you did an interview with Tomo Bystedt, who's the senior
yeah.
director of product creation for TaylorMade Golf, and you had a discussion with him. We're going to talk with him about his engineering insight on the new Stealth 2 wood products.
Yeah. Yeah.
Including some reactions by some tour players.
Mm-hmm.
So you definitely don't want to miss that. That's going to be in our back nine. So
Yeah.
after our break, we're going to come back with that interview with Tomo, and the rest of the front nine, or jumping into the front nine, I guess. Which is presented by Metcalf Golf Club, a natural setting, a pleasant challenge. The holidays are over, but it doesn't mean that you can't purchase your green fee packages and game packs and memberships now. Now that the holidays have ended, maybe you got some gift cards or some money from the loved one that you can spend.
Yeah.
Head over to metcalfgolf.com and do a little shopping there, or contact them and pick up some golf, because golf is just around the corner. Right.
Yeah, for sure. 100%.
Okay. I want to continue this conversation surrounding product and whatnot. And
Yeah.
in particular, it is product introduction season, as we talked about. Companies like Cobra, Strixon, Cleveland
Yeah.
Golf, Ping, TaylorMade. There's a lot of new stuff coming out, and I want to talk just a little bit about some of that stuff ahead of the interview that we're doing in the back nine section.
Just one last thing to wrap up, though, in talking about that product cycle. We did do a survey this week on Twitter, and that talked about how long you've had your current driver in your bag, and it leads right into your comment that we're all on different product cycles. So I'll just mention it quickly and we'll go from there. I basically offered 4 options for people, of how long you had your current driver in your bag: less than a year, 1 to 3 years, 4 to 5 years, at 6 or more years. It was pretty split. It wasn't defined one or less. It was basically 21.7% less than a year, 1 to 3 years, 38%, 4 to 5 years, 18.1%, 6 or more years, 22%. So
it's clear to see, though, that
Yeah.
the majority, yes, it's close, but for the most part, the majority of people are in the 1 to 3 year category. That's almost 40%. of the survey.
Yeah. And these are avid golfers. You have to
Yeah,
remember they're avid golfers that are following us on Twitter.
exactly.
That's going to skew the result versus, the player that, you just meet up with a guy at the golf course and he's still got his, TaylorMade R7 in the
Well,
bag
that's
or
it.
whatever.
And the driver seems to be that sexy weapon, I guess, if you want to call it that, because that's the thing that puts you in play. That's the thing that goes 300 yards. That's
it's the ego. It's the ego club.
Yeah, that's the club. And so that's the one that does not surprise me, is in that 1 to 3, primarily in the 1 to 3 category, because I think that would be the club that's in the rotation a little bit more often.
Yeah,
I know
people would driver shop probably more often than they would iron shop.
Well, and you think about it, if you go into any golf retail outlet, and you walk down the aisles, the thing that's on the end aisle,
exactly.
You go down the aisles, all the clubs are down the aisles. The drivers are on the end aisle, or they're in the power aisles down the middle with the 2-year-old model that's 30% off.
Yeah.
So clearly the retailers know that the driver is the club that the majority of people are going to change.
We know that. We've got the retail experience to know that. We've seen it a million times.
Exactly. So irons, it's a little different. I mean, technology in irons changes, significantly as well. But for different types of players, that technology does not change as much. Right. So the better player, the scratch golfer that likes the players club, the technology that goes into the heads for an iron are not as the technology is not as significantly different as it is for the game improvement club, where you're trying to get into the deeper cavities and the power channels and the weight ports, and
there's less material to move around.
Right, exactly. Because you're getting into forged clubs and things. Like, I know the clubs that I'm playing now, I'm not gonna lie, I have a set of Strixon irons, and they're a forged players type club, like for the better player, even though I suck. But hey, look, ego comes into it when you're buying irons too. And if I have the cool club, I probably am pretty good, right?
Hey, I always say we buy hope. We don't buy golf equipment.
Exactly.
We buy hope.
But the clubs I was playing before were not really that much different as far as the materials that were in the head, the shaft that I'm using. I mean, I've been fit for the shaft is not the same shaft, but the properties in the shaft are very similar, because that's what fit me 5 years ago or 10 or 8 years ago. It still fits me now. So that's not really going to change. Whereas
I've used the same shaft now for 31 years.
That's crazy, huh? It's crazy. Dynamic gold, I mean, that's
dynamic gold X100.
And if it still exists and it's still the right shaft, why would you change that?
No.
Whereas, we talk about club changes. My youngest son, Brandon, he's 16, almost 16 now.
Sure.
And the clubs that he's using, he loves his clubs, but the clubs that he's using are the same irons that he was using 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Just a little bit longer. Well, herein lies the problem. 5 years ago, Brandon was 4'8", 86 pounds. Well, Brandon's not 4'8", 86 pounds anymore, and he's significantly stronger. So there's no way. There's no way in the world, as much as you love those clubs, there's no way in the world that those clubs still fit you.
And that plays into fitting, right? Things change. Golfers progress. It doesn't matter who they are, or they either progress or regress. How's that? we get older, or we get stronger. We change what we're doing as far as how we play. So no one, and I would tell every single person, and believe me, I've tried it. I've tried a million different things as far as going through stuff. It's impossible for anyone to suggest to you exactly what club that you can play, making a general comment. It just doesn't happen. It's an individual thing where the golf club has moving parts, as far as the shaft, whatever. You're moving, you have an individual movement. You could have two players that are the exact same club head speed, have some of the same delivery things. There's still going to be a lot of different variables in there that can change, whether that's personal preferences or whatever, will change what club is better for you. So while we can review a product and tell you what the general characteristics are, like anyone can, if anybody says definitively, oh, this one is better than this one, or this one is better than this one, it's not necessarily the case for you. So you gotta basically take that with a grain of salt, use it as part of your information, but don't make a definitive decision based on any outside source online, whatever. It doesn't matter if they do robot testing or whatever the case may be. They can tell you certain characteristics, but that doesn't mean it's suited 100% to you.
Now, you asked the question, or you were brought up the comment that people are not able to hold on to or try out, test the new equipment that's out there right now, and that they're judging the value of a product from a photo.
Right.
So let's touch on that for a second.
Okay.
How much of the purchase decision is based on
looks,
aesthetics? Because I'm going to be honest with you. I don't care if I hit a driver dead straight 450 yards. Well, maybe that's an exaggeration. I probably still don't. If I hit one club, if I hit it dead straight, or it performs well for me, if I can't stand the look of that, and I was this way on the white drivers and woods for a very long time when they first come out. I was the naysayer, couldn't stand these things. I'm like, this is stupid. I can't look at this thing, the glare off it, the shine, I can't hit it.
Sure.
I ended up having one in my bag for 6 years. And I loved it and I hit it great, but I could not, for the first little while I could not get myself past, no matter how well I tested it, because we were testing those at the PGA Merchandise Show years ago. And when I tested it, I could hit this thing great. As long as I had the right shaft and setup and everything, I could hit this thing great. So how much of that, like, I couldn't get past it. So I would not buy that club.
You're not alone. You're not alone at all.
So when you talk about people looking at, I'm looking online and this is great looking, and this is, how much of their buying decisions are based on aesthetics, and how much of their buying decisions are going to be based on
too much, unfortunately. Too much, unfortunately. And again, but it can play into their performance, whether they like it or not. You even you mentioned as far as reflection. People go down, they play in sunny conditions. It was like, I don't like chrome wedges. I don't like chrome wedges, not because their look, it's because their functionality for me, as far as that reflection and whatever the case may be. It definitely plays into it, but that still plays into ego a fair bit. Ego of what's in your bag for someone seeing it. Yes, it's aesthetics. It's your money, your choice. You get to choose.
100%.
But you have to also understand that if you're making the trade-off. So if you look in there, and if that club performed better for you, but you don't like the look of it, so you won't buy it, that's your choice. But yes, that does play into the decision, certainly. I'm just saying, when people look at it from an aesthetic standpoint, they're perfectly within their rights to say, I couldn't play that. I don't want to play that. But where they're not correct is to say, that's a terrible golf club. That's a terrible golf club.
Yes.
And I mean, without actually
hitting, there's no way of knowing.
How do you know?
If it's terrible unless you hit it. I mean, it's
right. I mean,
you can't say that's a terrible car if you've never driven it. It may be a terrible looking car to you.
Well, imagine if you were a golfer or somebody living in the 1920s, and you were presented with a slate of golf clubs from 2020. You would think these things were from space, right? You're like, oh, that's not a golf club or whatever. I mean, things change as far as progressions, technologies. I mean, last year alone, and if we looked at the TaylorMade Stealth and saw that red face, people were like, whoa, that's whatever. A year later, I don't hear people yakking about the face.
No.
So it's definitely a part of it as far as the aesthetics and people looking at it, but they shouldn't judge performance based on the aesthetics.
No, definitely that we will agree on. And I think most people would have to agree with that. Okay. I like the fact that we have this conversation going here, but there are a couple of little things that we just want to delve into really quickly. The Ottawa Gatineau Golf Expo is returning this year to we'll call it an in-person golf show. Just finished my conversation this week with Greg Chambers from the National Golf Course Owners Association, who's the organizer, operator, show manager, and solidified that we will have a booth at the Golf Expo this year. We will be there in person in attendance, there to shake some hands and have some conversations, as we used to. Obviously, since things are a little different with Flagstick now that we don't have a print publication, we're not going to be there passing out print magazines that I know of yet. But we will be there to talk with you about all things Flagstick and all things golf. And if you have any questions or whatever about the podcast or tournaments or anything like that, we'll talk about our tournaments and stuff. We'll have a presence. Let's just say that. And in talking with Greg, seems like a lot of the golf courses from the area are going to be returning. The Canadian Golf Pro Shop Online will be there with the big retail. So we're kind of getting back to the norm a little bit in that respect. My understanding is that the show floor is going to be a tad bit smaller, but I think they had a lot of extra dead space in the past, just around the outside. They're going to tighten things up and make it nice and cozy. And they're still ironing out the details on what seminars are going to be on the stage and what activities are going to be happening. But stay tuned. Pay attention to flagstick.com. Pay attention to this podcast. We'll have Greg on a little closer to the expo, which is March 3rd and 4th, back at the EY Center. And we'll have him on to talk about the expo a little bit too.
Sounds good.
Okay. Let's say, Scott, do we want to take a break and then come back with Tomo and then kind of have a little wrap up discussion about that when we're done?
Because we can dig into more specific product introductions and on maybe next week or whatever. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's still coming out or whatever
between now and the end of the month.
But, for sure. So we have lots of time to talk about those commentaries. Lots of time as well to talk about things like setting golf goals and things like that for 2023. We've got some content coming up related to that, but maybe we'll dedicate some show time to that in the future. So let's take a break and come back with Tomo. I think people will really enjoy that.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. Okay, stay with us. Hope you've enjoyed the front nine, but stay with us. Don't go away. We're going to come back with the back nine and our interview with Tomo Bystedt from TaylorMade Golf. Stay there. We'll be right back.
When you golf on Prince Edward Island, there are over 400 fairways closer than you can imagine. Not to mention countless miles of pristine beaches and a rich world-class culinary experience. So get here fast, then take it slow and play around on Island Time. Golf Prince Edward Island.
All right, we are back here on the Flagstick Podcast with your host, Jeff Botter, and your other host, Scott McLeod. Now we, as we promised, we have a really cool interview that Scott set up and did that we're going to play for you now with Tomo Bystedt from TaylorMade Golf, and he is going to take a deep look into the new TaylorMade Stealth 2 drivers, fairways, and hybrids. Scott, is there anything more that anybody needs to know about this interview before we go ahead with it? Do you want to set anything up?
So basically just to give some context to it, I did some testing. We mentioned that on the show. Obviously I couldn't give the details at that time, but I was up doing some testing of the new TaylorMade product, and then jumped on a Zoom call with Tomo, who is the director of product creation for TaylorMade. He's a guy who's been with the company for a long time, been involved with a lot of their design projects, and I think what people will see in this interview that this is not about marketing hype or anything like that. You're not going to hear a lot of buzzwords and things. Tomo's a design guy, and he's a brilliant guy, and it's really important to him to create products that are better. And it's always interesting to sit down with him and hear the discussion points, hear what's going into these designs, because they're not easy to pull off. They are definitely big engineering feats, and at the same time get the reaction, and he gets excited about this too, of what the tour players think when they come to the photo shoot that gets done quite some time ago, when they get the clubs in their hands, the final versions for the first time. So that's pretty much it. I think people, if you have any questions about what's happening with Tomo, then just pass them along. But great insight here, really gives you a different look to the new products, the new TaylorMade Stealth 2 carbon woods.
All right. And with that, here's Scott McLeod's interview with TaylorMade Golf's Tomo Bystedt.
All right, we're joined today by Tomo Bystedt, a familiar face for Flagstick followers, obviously the senior product director at TaylorMade Golf. And today we're going to talk about carbonwood, the next evolution of carbonwood. You know, you joined us last year to talk about these groundbreaking products, a whole different look, a whole different material that you were making use of in the face of your woods. Welcome back. And, let's get to it. Stealth 2. You had last year a product that was groundbreaking, that took a long time to develop, as we talked about, but that obviously set you up for where you were going to go next. What are you most excited about in this Stealth 2 product?
Yeah, Scott, thanks for having me. I definitely kind of feel a lot of excitement about next year. The team has done an incredible job, obviously, to bring a 20-year in the making technology to the market in 2022, and now in 2023 we're feeling like there's a lot of runway to make this product even better. And you know, the crazy thing is when you make something amazing and new, and that's so different, and our company has obviously invested in this technology in a big way, all around our supply chain and everything else, it does open up new opportunities. We talked about this last year in terms of, seeing a little bit of a ceiling with titanium, or where we could go with the face technology and the face speed and forgiveness. And so we kind of jumped to a new track with the carbon faces. And now going into the second year of that, we're unlocking all this additional performance. And that's really the exciting part about this is, had we kind of kept going with Ty, I don't think we would have seen opportunities like we're seeing now with Stealth 2.
Yeah, I mean, in hitting the product and having a look at the details of it a few weeks back, one thing that really stood out to me is the fact that you're making such an advancement in the weight of the face and how much lighter I mean, just having that face in your hand and you can barely feel it. There's obviously significant advantages there of what you can do with the mass that you've displaced there, but also in creating a different shape within that face to create different performance characteristics.
Yeah, so the new face is really, again, based on a lot of learnings of the first version of the face. And one of the things that, you have to do when you launch the first thing of anything new is to make sure it's really reliable, it's durable, it holds up to the scrutiny of everyone who's going to be using the product. And part of that kind of compromise, if you will, is that you're maybe not extracting every ounce of performance you can out of it to get that done. So for generation 2, we had this opportunity to, like you said, make the face even lighter, but more than that, really focus on the forgiveness aspect of the face, of saying, okay, we've delivered this incredible ball speed. Can we now spread that over a larger area of the face? And so the difference that you're feeling in terms of the weight and obviously the profile is really about making the edges thinner, right? And improving off-center ball speed while keeping obviously the center face conforming and within the rules. So that's been really the advancement of the face. And obviously it builds into the bigger story about sort of the goal of our team, which was to deliver more forgiveness holistically in this product.
Yeah, and you've got that really across the product line in the drivers, which there's 3 drivers. Obviously, people will be familiar with the Plus, the Standard, and then the HD, which I think is an intriguing line, especially for the average golfer and the performance benefits that they can probably find within that.
Yeah, the HD for us, this is an interesting product for us as well, because we, along with sort of the work we did on the driver, and obviously in the driver, there's a bunch of new stuff in the construction, and you see it year on year, you can see the differences right away in terms of how much mass we've saved with the additional carbon. And within that, the HD line offered us a new opportunity to really max out the forgiveness. And going into 2022 last year, we did not have an HD fairway wood, we did not have an HD rescue product. Mostly because those products weren't ready to go at that time. We were still working on trying to extract sort of this next level of performance. And especially when you look at the fairway wood, you'll notice just a totally different approach to the product. You'll notice it obviously with the shaping of it, but internally how we weighted that product, it's got incredible MOI. It's the highest MOI product we've ever tested here internally at TaylorMade. And it's certainly the most forgiving fairway wood that we have ever made from an MOI stability standpoint. It's also super easy to launch. So that product, I think, to your point about the average golfer, it's going to be a game changer for that player. And especially with fairway woods being such a hard club to hit. In general, this is going to really change it for a lot of people. And I think just in general, having the HD family across the entire bag is also going to make that, I think, seem like a more viable option for a lot of people, and something that, you know, if you get the HD driver and you've been a draw driver person in the past, well, now you can get a fairway, you can get hybrids, and you can get a set of irons that also to perform with the similar goals in mind.
Yeah, I mean, I labeled the HD product, especially starting with that fairway, and there's two fairways that I think are real unicorns that I think will get a lot of people's attention. You know, that HD fairway, I guess 200 cubic centimeters, a little larger profile, shallower, as you said, super stable. You know, we get so many golfers that, you know, look down at a fairway wood and they look at it as being challenging to hit. But that one just seems, you know, super easy. You look down and you're not scared of it, especially after you hit it yourself.
Yeah. I think, you know, the thing there is, it's really funny because when you set out to prove a concept in terms of like performance, you're trying to make a super forgiving fairway wood. A lot of times you start with sort of, you know, no rules. There's like, just do whatever makes this club the most forgiving. But a lot of times you end up with a club, but maybe that doesn't look good, right? Like we know that golf clubs are such an art and science to it. They have to look right when you set it down behind the ball. And so a lot of it was obviously getting the technology right, but also making it look good. One of the goals was, if you're a scratch golfer, you're a tour player, you should be able to play this product from a look standpoint. You should be able to put that down behind the ball and go, I could totally use this product. And if it performs the way I want it to, I would play it, kind of thing. So, you know, it's a club that has draw bias, has easy launch, but it looks good behind the ball. It sits square. The profile is bigger, but it's not, again, ungainly looking. And we put that product in front of tour players. We had Scotty Scheffler commented to me when we had a tour shoot a couple months ago. He was mentioning that, you know, if this performed for me in terms of spin and launch, he would play it. He was like, I love the confidence that I would get from looking at that behind the ball. And so, to your point about it being a unicorn, it does strike a unique balance in that way of kind of being acceptable visually and looks nice behind the ball, but also have that incredible forgiveness built in.
Yeah, and one of the unicorns, the other one that I mentioned in that bunch, which I'm very interested actually to hear what your tour players thought of it. And I'll tell you, being with a number of media colleagues and going and testing this product, it definitely was the one everyone was talking about. And the fact that the Stealth 2 Plus fairway with this massive 50-gram cartridge on the bottom that allows you to transform the club into a different club without changing the look of it. The versatility of it was unbelievable. And first off, before we get in the engineering of it, maybe a little bit on tour player reaction to this, because I can imagine, you know, for players that are wanting the same look, but maybe conditions change and courses change, their needs change all the time as they move from venue to venue. There's some real possibilities here within this golf club.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, the possibilities are almost endless with this product. And one of the things that we wanted to deliver was just the maximum amount of versatility, the maximum amount of options to fit, to gap your clubs, to adapt to conditions. I mean, all these things is what this club can do incredibly well. And you were asking about the tour feedback. When we showed this to our tour players, when we do our content shoot every year, I would say this was the #1 product that people were excited about trying and hitting and playing next year, as their next fairway wood. And I think, you know, the reason for that is when you look at tour players, they, you know, with a driver, for example, they're all looking for kind of the same thing, you know, distance, consistency of spin, you know, the right look behind the ball. But with fairway woods, everyone's looking for some different things. You know, some people want it to launch low with spin, you know, hit a yardage. You know, people that come to mind there would be people like Rory or DJ. You know, they have a certain gapping in mind between their driver. And then you get guys like Colin Morikawa who uses this 3-wood very effectively off the tee and really wants to get the maximum distance out of it because he uses it in a lot of par 4s and wants to hit it straight, but wants to maximize how much he's getting out of it. So with that in mind, you know, you get these tour players and a lot of times you bring in a great fairway wood, it doesn't really work for everyone. You know,
Right.
A Stealth Plus is a good example of a club that's extremely long, but it's also very low spin. It's a great distance club for off the tee, but some players might want something that lands softer on the green if you hit it into par fives, things like that. So with this club, the tour players immediately could see the benefits, and I also think about Tiger Woods as a good example of a player who in the past has looked for a bit more spin in his fairways. When you look at it, so the stuff that he's been playing, the M5s, the M3s were a couple of his favorites. Those all spun a bit more than our more modern ones in the Sim and the Stealth family of fairways. So this for him immediately resonated in terms of, okay, now I can get kind of the look, the loft, the launch I want, and I can dial in that spin basically independently of those variables, right? And then on top of that, you say, okay, you get a 3-wood that you like. Now you can gap the 5-wood exactly to where you need that to be, compared to maybe your longest iron or where your hybrids are. So it was really well received, honestly, Scott. And one of the things that we also did on this, we improved the shaping a little bit too. We took some feedback on the current Stealth and the Sim 2s and kind of dialed in the shaping a little bit. And they just loved how this looked behind the ball. It sits very low to the ground. It's got a bit of face height again, so it's not too intimidating to hit off the tee. But again, having that versatility of kind of low launch, low spin to higher launch, more spin, and everything in between is really cool.
Yeah, it was pretty neat just to play around with the different settings and realize that it sort of went from that rocket, hit it off the tee kind of deal that, as you said, a Morikawa would go to versus something that's like the HL. Well, you can all of a sudden create that within the same golf club. I can imagine, though, with a 50-gram cartridge that's in there and the way it works, there was a lot of extra challenges in producing this. It's not going to be easy all of a sudden from a, cost perspective, engineering perspective. But why were you guys willing to kind of take on that challenge, I guess, more than anything?
Yeah, one of the nice things about the Ti fairway platform for us is, titanium is, relatively rarely used in fairway woods. Most companies do steel fairway woods, and we've obviously done a lot of steel fairway woods. The titanium platform, introduces a lot of new challenges. It's a lot different to work with. It frees up so much mass that you have to figure out how to put that mass, but then it's also challenging for durability to sound and all those other things. And I think for us, the reason why we were able to kind of do this in 2023 was we had this kind of runway of, we started with the M5, which was a pretty conservative effort to try to get Ti basically working in a fairway wood. Then we got into the Sims, and then obviously Stealth Plus this year, where we really focused on creating very low CG for incredible launch conditions. And then we gradually added some more forgiveness into the product. And really, by having that experience of working essentially for 4+ years on this technology of Ti and steel, that combination, we felt like we could take the leap. And obviously this technology of the sliding weight has been in development for many years for us. And you were correct in saying that this is a very difficult kind of engineering and production challenge. We definitely had a lot more work that had to be done on this compared to a lot of the other products that we developed for this launch. And the durability, the sound, when you have that much weight that's basically loose and that doesn't, at impact, doesn't want to necessarily go with the rest of the club, it presents a lot of challenges. And I can't tell you the hours that we spent down in the lab and our engineers, durability testing, sound testing, bringing in countless prototypes of different shapes, weights, different amounts of mass, and all those things to get to the point where we're at. And honestly, they did done an incredible job to make this happen for us, because it was a bit of a dream here a couple of years ago of can we do this? And again, when the weight's front to back like that, it wants to keep moving at impact. It wants to push forward in the head, and it, like I said, it's a very tough engineering challenge.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that play into that. People maybe don't even understand how it even affects things like acoustics as far as moving things around. So again, not something a lot of people think of, but you guys have managed to pull it off, which I thought was incredible. And I think a lot of people, if they go out and they test this, they'll see the versatility. And that's not even using the loft sleeve and changing that around on top of that to create even more variation. So kudos to you guys for doing that. Last bit then, moving to the rescues, obviously, as you said, having an HD option in there, kind of what's your feel as far as that market? Because obviously it's still a growing market. It's something that's well established, but where do you advance a rescue? Where do you guys feel that you can go forward with a rescue?
Yeah, it's the rescue category is really interesting because as you move into the sort of transition from driver into irons, the market becomes more and more varied in terms of the types of golfers and the usage and what kind of shots you're trying to hit. Like I said earlier, the driver is a little bit more one-dimensional. And then as you get into irons, obviously there's a million different ways to slice irons. And that's why we have everything from HDs all the way to muscle backs. And so rescue is really becoming that transitional category where there's need for a little bit more variation in sort of head styling, head size, types of ground interaction that you see with players. For example, some people like to take divots with their hybrids. Some people obviously have more of a sweeping swing like a fairway would. And then the other part of it is sort of, are you replacing irons with this? Are you going deeper down into the set? And that's where you're going to see some of these higher lofts, the 6 and the 7s are going to be in play, where people are removing 5 and 6 irons from their iron sets. On the other end of the spectrum, for the better player, we definitely see, that kind of bridge between kind of a 3-wood, 5-wood, or a 3 hybrid. Like, that's a very interesting intersection. Some people like it. I personally see a lot of golfers playing a 3 hybrid instead of a 3 iron, that sort of better lower handicap player, because of the consistency on the miss hits. Again, if you miss a 3 iron, a lot of times it's going to come up short on a par 3 if it's a long par 3. Whereas the hybrid's a little more forgiving in that you hit it low in the face because of that low CG. It's still going to get there. It might have a different ball flight than you intended, but it's probably going to get there distance-wise. And so it just gives you that little bit of buffer. And so what we're trying to do with this line of Stealth 2 rescues is really to deliver that variation in performance. The Plus model is going to be that more workable, that player takes a bit of a divot, kind of a bit of a taller face. So just kind of, again, transitioning a little bit more seamlessly with a long iron, maybe like a 770 long iron or 790. And then as you go into the core model, that's really going to be your kind of all-rounder. We're going to see these in play on tour, but we're also going to see them in a lot of bags for 20 handicappers. It's an easy launch. This is our longest product. It goes really far. So again, as you're trying to replace longer, higher lofted fairways or irons, this is going to be a great option there. And then of course the HD is going to really build on the technology that we put in the fairway wood. It's a very low profile club, super easy to launch, very, very forgiving on miss hits. And that's really, again, going to try to make sure that person that struggles with maybe a 5 or a 4 or a 6 iron even can have a hybrid that just is easier to play and maintains that gapping too. So we've kind of tweaked the lofts a little bit in those HDs as well, where the gapping is a little bit wider to allow for like a meaningful difference between a 5 and a 6 hybrid, for example.
All right, last question, whether you want to answer it or not. We've talked about it a little bit, and this is a curiosity for a lot of consumers. Is there ever going to be a need, or will you look at doing a carbon face in a fairway wood or a hybrid?
It's very unlikely that it will happen, and I say that because it's obviously it's a technology platform that we have explored. I mean, we've explored this 15 years ago plus,
of course,
and the benefit just isn't there, Scott. So when you think about why we're getting the speed benefit in the drivers, because we're replacing a heavier material with a lighter one, a less dense material, and we're making that collision more efficient essentially with the ball. When you're replacing a fairway or a hybrid face, the faces are so much smaller to start with, so much lighter to start with. And once you've got the ledge that the face sits on, you've kind of lost your mass savings at that point. So it's really, and obviously there's extra cost and complexity involved in making carbon face. So right now on the horizon, unless there's some need for some massive faces in a fairway wood, it's probably not going to happen. And that's my kind of prognostication into the future, I would say, is don't hold your breath.
All right. Fair enough. Well, thanks, Tomo. Always good to catch up. Great new products. Very curious about the consumer feedback. I think they're going to be very interested in what they see here and what they find there. And kudos to your team for creating another great line.
Great. Thanks, Scott. Appreciate it.
Wow.
Yeah,
I guess
what's going on there, right?
I guess wow is really the only way to describe it. And here's the cool thing about what we do. Okay, here's the cool thing. For 26 plus years, we are blessed with having the opportunity to be able to have these conversations with people that are so dedicated and ingrained in the golf industry, and not just a guy like Tomo there's hundreds of people that we have crossed paths with and had the opportunity to sit down and talk with, and that may never have been on camera because we're talking back, back in the late 1990s,
1900s.
1900s.
Technically, it
I'm
is.
not that old. Yeah, technically, yes, it is the late 1900s, but I'm referring more to like the late 1990s. But we've had these conversations, and we're so fortunate to be able to sit down and have these discussions, whether they're recorded or whether they're interviews or just ad hoc conversations, just like this one. And that's really what this was, is just another one of those sit down conversations with somebody in the industry that has insight and knowledge, and is providing all of that to our audience. It just happens to be on a different platform, but it's so cool that we're able to do that. And that was just an awesome interview.
Yeah, I mean, Tomo's great. I got to spend a fair amount of time with him in person. I've spent some time with him out at the TaylorMade facility. I played golf with him in Florida. He's a great player as well. So, there's a good level of respect and kind of interest. So it feels a little bit less about, you see these reporters doing, movie junket interviews with people, and obviously they've never met them before or whatever. So there's a different rapport in dealing with these industry people, and we're fortunate to have that. And, no disrespect to maybe people that are starting out in the industry right now. They don't have that same relationship with these designers, these people within these companies. So as a result of it, there's a trust factor there, and when they're able to share or want to share more with us than maybe they would some other people, people they don't know, because they just don't have that relationship with them. So so we're privileged to have that. It's neat for sure as well to see his level of excitement in regards to specific products. You heard his enthusiasm there for the for the Stealth 2, the plus fairway wood, the uniqueness of that, the HD fairway wood. I mean, as I said in the interview, the unicorn products that were in that, and we spotted that right away, or at least I did. I was looking at them and going, oh man, that's neat. That's neat. That's something really different. And he knows how hard those projects were to create, and what went into that. And I think that's what I think people need to appreciate a little bit more, not just judging it, as we talked about in the in the front nine, just looking at something and dismissing it and saying, oh, that's the same club, they just painted a different color.
Well, and therein lies what we talked about, where we said, what's the difference from one year to the next,
right?
So when you're looking at, okay, the Stealth just came out, right? And that was the big thing, Stealth, the red face, the carbon wood age, all that kind of stuff. Okay, that's cool, that's exciting, that's sexy. Now there's a Stealth 2 coming out. Okay, well, whoop-de-doo. There's a Stealth 2. It's basically just some new paint and some logos, and
that's the perception by some people.
Exactly, which is why doing interviews like this and getting information out like this from the person who actually created the product, it's like, okay, it's not just a different version with some fresh paint and logos. There is some significant differences to the Stealth 2 versus the original Stealth.
And we appreciate the fact that people will look at it and go, okay, well, they're biased. Of course they're biased. They invented the product.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, but he's not jumping on this podcast to sell it to you. He's on this podcast because as an engineer and a designer, he's got the pride in making the changes in the design and seeing the significance of that, whether it's testing it with Scotty Scheffler or Rory McIlroy or whoever the play is on the tour, the best players in the world, but also knowing how that's going to impact the average player that's out there as well, and what it can do more for them. And that's what he's trying to do every single year. I mean, this is a guy, I've been to his office. I mean, he loves products. I mean, whether it's, Jordan shoes or whatever. I mean, this guy he lives and breathes design and wants things to be better. So, take it for what it's worth. Take it for whatever bias that you think is there. But, I think there's some incredible information there, and I hope people really appreciated that, enjoyed it, and, appreciate the effort to get that interview as well.
Well, and here's the thing. This is the kind of thing, as we said off the top of the show, this is the kind of thing that we're going to try to do more of in 2023. We're going to try to have more of these interviews and more of these information snippets that we put into the show rather not that listening to you and I talk about something for 30 to 45 minutes is not, invigorating and wonderful, because frankly, let's be honest with ourselves. It's nice to hear ourselves talk, but it's also nice to hear other people talk that might know a little bit more than, at least than I do, about certain products. And yes, there are, when you look at the manufacturers, yes, we are a business, and there is marketing dollars that, we're always looking, to generate revenue.
For sure.
But those that does not influence, what we're bringing on and putting on this show. No. If anything, we're very particular about who we do business with too. And this is something that I think after 20 some odd years that people should realize by now. We don't just take every nickel that comes our way. I've refused more advertising than you can possibly imagine, because I have an issue with something, and I'm not, the type of person that just takes the dollar because the dollar's there to take. Integrity, relationships is very important to us. And these relationships that we have with companies like TaylorMade, like Ping and Cobra, these are long-term, long-built relationships.
And there's a level of a mutual respect in there, and knowing and understanding that, we're agnostic, when it comes to different things. And I always look at it that way, whether it was back in the retail days or, as a golf professional or whatever. The whole goal is to give people the best information possible. It's not to give them biased information. Whether I like something or not for myself, that has no bearing on whatever opinion that I give people, or shouldn't, because it's about them. So the same thing here. We're sharing things here because, we want to, we believe in whatever, that we're talking about. And, it's not a case of just saying, and again, I'll go back to, I saw something recently where, somebody did a deal with something. They all of a sudden go from, oh, this is the best to this is the best overnight. It's like, things can change. I get that and respect that. But if the only thing that changed was who was putting $1 in their pocket, then that's not really a valued opinion, and that's disrespecting the audience.
And God's honest truth, if you ask Scott or I about a product, and we truly do believe that the product is garbage, we're going to tell you that the product is garbage. It's as simple as that. If we like it, we're going to tell you we like it, and we're going to tell you why we like it. We're not going to tell you why you should buy it. We're going to tell you why we like it. And if we don't like it, we're going to tell you why we don't like it, not why you shouldn't buy it. So it's
because that's your choice in the end.
Exactly. At the end of the day, what we like or don't like is irrelevant, but the information that we have to provide to you about something is relevant. And that's what,
and you'll see that as we go into talking about even like Prince Edward Island. We love PEI. I've got a certain bias and things towards it, but it's not my decision whether you're going to go there or not. Right. But we're here to, they're a sponsor. We love having them as a sponsor. We're going to showcase the attributes, and then it's up to you to decide whether you go, whether I believe that's going to be attractive to you or not.
Well, and that's the thing. Like my experience going there was a positive one. Everything about it was a positive one. There was nothing negative about my experience there.
Except for the cup of water at my mom's house, but that's different. But let's just say there was no coffee in the coffee.
Oh gosh. Let's
keep it real.
Well, come on, I'm gonna throw your mom under the bus.
Sorry, Mom.
He just did that. He really just did that.
I did that.
Now the surf and turf was outstanding, so we'll overlook the water in the cup thing. But that's my point is there's nothing negative. There's nothing negative for me to say about the experience from the time that we touched down to the time that we left. So I can't give you a negative opinion. Your opinion, if you do the same trip, you might find something negative and have something negative to say. Well, that's your opinion. I can't help you there.
Yeah, and we've been that same way for many, many years. I mean, I can still remember doing a road trip for a particular destination. We can talk about it later or whatever. But it was just a road trip for a particular thing. Wrote a story about it. There was a couple of really awkward, weird holes on the one golf course because they had adjusted it to fit in some housing. And I mentioned right in the story you might find the architecture as you go through. Those couple holes are kind of unusual. That was in the story. You know, and I will tell you that destination reached out and said, hey, is there any way you can soften that in your story? And I said, no, I can't. That is fact. And then it's up to people to judge it. But that's my opinion based on going there and experiencing that. So we'll always be honest with you.
Exactly.
Yeah. Cape Cod. Anyway.
Well, I mean, there was another trip we took to, I think it was when we played the course at NC State.
Oh yeah,
you remember it was an Arnold Palmer design golf course. I think. Do you remember Lonnie Pool?
Lonnie Pool. Yeah.
And there was a little par 3 that seemed like it was just kind of they created 17 holes and then realized they hadn't done 18, and they tried to figure out a way to slam a par 3 in between the cart paths of, you know. Yeah. I mean, it was a decent par 3 and everything, but it was more the routing than it wasn't the hole. Yeah. It was the routing of the hole. It's like, oh.
What I always
funny looked like something was forgotten.
Yeah, but what I always think is funny about that, and you'll see it sometimes within manufacturer or something as well. It can happen with anything in the golf industry. Is that, you know, people may bring criticism forward, and they'll go no, and they would try to defend it. And then 3 years later, they blow up that hole and redesign it, and don't admit the mistake. Right?
Exactly.
And don't apologize to the people that were critical of it. So,
no. But the reason for changing it was because they knew exactly what the problem was, and exactly where the criticism was coming from.
Right.
It just took them a while to figure it out, and then they just kind of silently or loudly fix it without taking any into account why they did that. So
exactly
crazy. Okay, great show for the first one back. It was awesome. Great interview with Tomo Bystedt. So we really do want to thank him for taking the time to sit down with you and giving some insight and a little bit more of an in-depth look into the new TaylorMade Stealth 2 products.
Yeah, we should thank our back nine sponsor as well for supporting that.
Yes, true. Sorry, our back nine sponsor is Golf Sim Gurus. Give me some time to kind of work back into it, but Golf Sim Gurus, obviously, if you're looking to put a simulator in your own home, perfect person to talk to is Andy McWilliams at Golf Sim Gurus, golfsimgurus.ca. So, again, great show. Obviously, we do want to thank our sponsors this week, Metcalf Golf Club and the aforementioned Golf Sim Gurus, and to our presenting sponsor this week, Golf PEI. Golf Prince Edward Island is a premier golf destination boasting the most golf courses per capita in the country, with over 400 fairways closer than you can possibly imagine, top-tiered accommodations, and exquisite culinary experiences. I guarantee they are exquisite. It is the easiest golf vacation that you will ever book. So book your golf vacation and your tee times at golfpei.ca. Glad for you to tune in, listen or watch, whatever it is that you like to do. Be sure to continue to follow us across all of our social media networks on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Subscribe to us on Spotify, Audible, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts. And don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Like us and click the notification bell to make sure that you don't miss any episodes in 2023. Get over to flagstick.com for amazing golf tent delivered every single day. And now that we're kind of winding into the product season, there will be plenty of content put up there every single day. So get over there at flagstick.com and check it out. As always, we do appreciate you tuning in. Until next week, I am Jeff Botter.
I'm Scott McLeod.
And remember, always go for the stick.